Welcome to the Dr. Maria Show. As you know, recently I was out in Las Vegas, Nevada for the Vindicated tour by Gateway Pundit. There were superstars there, big patriots, Rudy Giuliani, General Flynn, Roger Stone, Mel K, etc. Well, it was my first time hearing from Mel K, and I was captivated. What she was saying made so much sense, but it was more than common sense that I admired her for. Obviously, she had to do deep research to get to her analysis and conclusion. You know, looking at Mel K's life, she worked in Hollywood for decades, doing research for historical dramas and working and being successful in media. And then it came upon her that, wow, there's a lot of deceptive media and marketing. And that's how the Mel K show began. Well, I'm glad to have her here today. Welcome to the show, Mel.
Hi, Maria. Welcome. Thank you for having me. I'm so excited. It was such a pleasure to meet you finally, and I'm glad to be here.
Well, I want to give my audience what you gave me. You started out, we have a little picture of you with this huge graph in the back, and it talked about all the relationships between IMF, the WHO, NATO, UN. I'm going to leave it up to you where to start on those interconnectedness and why they are all working against we the people.
Okay. Well, first and foremost, like you said, I had always been very into history. And during a time about 20 years ago, I wrote a screenplay about Hannah Arendt and Eichmann in Jerusalem. And in researching that, I realized that a lot of what I was reading, then when I dig deeper, it wasn't being taught, or it was being taught wrong in school or in my experience. And I started to see that there were patterns over time, particularly in the world wars, from World War I to World War II to where we are now, connecting different names and different people. And I realized that not only was the American Revolution on our side, we believed that we had liberated ourselves from the crown. We were our own country. We celebrate it every year. The truth is, I believe that that is not what the other side actually believed. And in fact, I think that the crown and those loyal to the crown, many of which were still in the South until the Civil War, went back to England, particularly, I would say, the City of London, which is the monarch banking venture there in England, and decided that it would be easiest to infiltrate America through the banking system. And thus, during Wilson betrayed us the most, first and foremost, with the advent of the Federal Reserve, which then, of course, came in, infiltrated through the banking system, and then with the railroads and land trusts and all this stuff that they did. But I think the real betrayal of America, which I'm working on my second book right now, really happened between 1944, probably 41 and 44, and 1954. And what I believe happened at that point was World War I was the first attempt to consolidate the world into a world power. I believe that it was all about this idea that came to fruition with the proposal of the League of Nations. And of course, at the time, proposed to America, America wanted nothing to do with the League of Nations. We're not going to give up our sovereignty. We fought for it, and we're not going to give it back to you. So, of course, we go forward. Well, after World War I, there was a whole idea of Germany paying reparations to the rest of the world. It was kind of an outlandish idea, but they decided that that was how they would end the war, with Germany owing reparations. So they create this thing called the Bank of International Settlements with a bunch of people from Wall Street, a Wall Street law firm, which employed both John Foster Dulles and his brother, Allen Dulles, and a whole bunch of bankers from Chase and a couple New York banks, but also every bank, including at the top, the Bank of England. And what they basically did was, in Switzerland, they decided, because it is three countries that were involved in the war, France, Germany, and where's the other one? Austria. and they created the Bank of International Settlements as the go-between for paying reparations from World War I to the world and to rebuild. Well, that was a good model for them, and that worked for a little while. And of course, as time went on, the Bank of International Settlements grew into really being controlled by Germany. And Germany, basically, they were the ones paying the reparations, but they demanded that they had a seat at the top of the Bank of International Settlements as well. And this is a small, at the time, was a small bank in the middle of Switzerland, in Basel, Switzerland. And after that point, what really happened, and it's sad for me to say this because I hate to think this, but it appears that the bankers that were involved and the particularly both Dulles brothers, Alan Dulles was based in Switzerland. His brother represented a lot of German companies from the Wall Street legal law firm, Sullivan and Cromwell. And then a banker from America, McKittrick, ran basically the Bank of International Settlements during World War II. It appears that when Germany was on the verge of surrendering in 1944, according to the CIA released document, the Red House documents, what they called themselves at the time internationalists, but that would be Rockefeller referred to himself as an internationalist, as did what we now call the multinational corporations, or I call it the public-private partnership of the World Economic Forum. And a lot of those firms were in Germany at the time. Many of them had, like IG Farben, they had a U.S. subsidiary. A lot of the banks had German banks, but they had subsidiaries or English banks. But then also they met with the top brass of the Nazis, which of course was the National Socialist Workers' Party, and Hitler. And then also in that mix were the bankers of the main banks, the Central Bank of Central Banks, which is the Bank of International Settlements. And basically what happened was they decided to get as much money out of Nazi Germany because 60 million people were affected, looted, their gold stolen, besides the horror of the concentration camps, we're talking about a pillaging of nations to the tune of billions upon billions of dollars. So Dulles was involved, as was his brother, with the Bank of International Settlements being the middleman to get a lot of money before Hitler surrendered out of Nazi Germany, apparently through Switzerland, the Bank of International Settlements, and Credit Suisse. It appears into mainly Argentina, but also some island havens that, you couldn't find the money, and then into the United States of America. And right now, a lot of people don't know, Chuck Grassley is in a joint investigation with Milei of Argentina to track down those rat lines. But the reason that this makes it even bigger is that I believe, is the beginning of what I call the international banking cartel. And
Can I stop you there, Mel? So was that bank, that one that was supposed to do reparations, it sounds like it was used for money laundering and getting the money into other places. Yeah. Okay.
Yeah. I mean, essentially, but again, we have to remember who was there to create it. Alan Dulles, who then leaves Germany and becomes the head of the CIA. And
that's right.
And he was based in Germany the whole time. His brother leaves Sullivan Cromwell and becomes the Secretary of State. And the McKittrick guy, he leaves and I believe goes to Chase. But JP Morgan was involved the whole time. All of the bankers that started the Federal Reserve were involved in the Bank of England, City of London. So what happens at this point is I believe that they, at this time, came up with the entire idea of the United Nations and this post-World War II, while the world was healing, and then we got sucked into multiple things like the giant fraud that was the Marshall Plan, which really was used to create the EU and the Euro and other things. But what happened after that was they not only put in 1947 something called the International Organization Immunity Act of 1947, which gave the Bank of International Settlements and the banks that were created through it the IMF, the World Bank, and later the World Trade Organization. At the same time, all 63 central banks, including our Federal Reserve, that are under the Bank of International Settlements, because they say the Bank of International Settlements is the bank of the central banks. So all of those institutions that are the bank, I call them the international banking cartel, they all have immunity to this day. And that means they are inviolable. They are not able to be, even Switzerland can't go into the Bank of International Settlements without permission from them. They have also total immunity for not just themselves, but their family members. They are not allowed to be audited, no search and seizure, no, literally no oversight at all for them and all of the tentacles. Well, at the same time, they're creating the United Nations with Rockefeller, who's also behind the Club of Rome, which is where the whole human-caused climate change and controlling human behavior. Also, the Council of Foreign Relations is older than this, but that is also a Rockefeller-led group in tandem with Chatham House. And then also the Trilateral Commission. What do all of these groups, including the United Nations, have in common? Well, what was the goal of, and I always say this and people call me an anti-Semite, it's very odd. I say Germany might have lost World War II, but the Nazis didn't. And the reason I say that, and it's not just Operation Paperclip, because already out of Grassley and Millet's investigation, people can look it up on Grassley's website, they found that 12,000 high-level Nazis came into America besides Operation Paperclip, which was to NASA and the Jet Propulsion Lab and the MK Ultra scientists. But now we're talking about people like professors, people that went into our universities, our institutions, our, government, all of that. All of these people at the same time, also the international multinational corporations from Germany were also coming into America and creating trunk companies.
Mel, I was aware of us, the United States, taking some of those Nazi high-level people who worked on all kinds of things, including doctors who tortured Jewish people. Why do you think we did that? Like, just
well, I think Alan Dulles was behind it. Frankly, I don't think the CIA has ever worked for the United States of America. I think they have always worked as set up for the international banking system. And then the international banks extended this International Organization Immunity Act of 1947 to the UN and to every tentacle of the UN. So all of them, to this day, I believe, are protected under this International Immunities Act of 47. The UN, UNESCO, the World Health Organization, the IPCC, the World Trade Organization, all these different groups. So if you put that whole bucket together, it appears to me that the intelligence community that was the OSS, that became the CIA, works for that group. And so all these years, we have been under this situation where the money came in. So this is also IG Farben, Krupp, GE, a lot of our IBM, a lot of our multinational corporations, which then when I talk about them, I'm talking about the boards, the board members. So a lot of them were facilitated by this money that was shipped out and laundered through. And in the middle of that were both of the Dulles brothers. And of course, I believe both of them were involved in JFK and RFK's murders as well. But that, it's a whole different topic. But to go forward with what I'm saying is, so now we have a situation where the entire founding of this country, everything we stand for, life, liberty, the pursuit of happiness, auto-determination, privacy, like think about what's happened since the, I believe, unconstitutional Patriot Act. But you got to go back to when the act that established the CIA and the National Security Agency, I believe, was not established for the good of the United States of America, but rather for this industrial strength global monetary system that has manipulated us into believing that giving money to the UN, the World Bank, the World Health Organization, all of that was, they used our compassion and our empathy and our post-World War II excitement with this idea. First of all, the United Nations, everything it's set out to do has been the complete opposite, a total failure. Unending war.
Yes, we've had Russia, China on human rights councils like it's a joke. And they allow people with the rhetoric of death to America, death to Israel. I don't know why we belong to it. And if we were speaking practically, Mel, and we were able to give, say, President Trump a roadmap, say he had all this education, how do we get out of it? Is it so intertwined now that can we get out of all these different agencies?
I believe we can. But again, the people that hate our country from within, and I'm talking about the globalists, because the scary part about what I'm saying, and I can't find total evidence, but that International Immunities Act of International Organization Immunity Act of 1947 that is still protecting this group. I believe that it extends to the Clinton Global Initiative and to Bill and Melinda Gates's foundation and to the Open
Wow.
Society Foundation, because they have a clause in there. And remember, they have no accountability, any of them, under this act. So I believe that it extends to anyone that goes into a collaboration with the UN or the Bank of International Settlements or any of those banks, gets extension of this protection. So it's like a mafia, and underneath it, I believe there's a level of that original National Security Act that established the CIA, I believe, was to protect them. So when I show you the thing, and so to me, first, somebody's got to look into that International Organization Immunity Act of 1947 and rescind it. Number two, Trump should look into rescinding the act that is protecting right now the propaganda media, because I'll tell you, from the very beginning of this entire operation I'm talking about, they had Bernays, who created PR, which is propaganda. PR is
Yeah.
propaganda. You
Yeah.
know, so they had Bernays and all the Nazis, propaganda Nazis. They started a lot of the PR and advertising agencies in America with that money. So we have to Hollywood was started a lot with that money. So what we have to look at is the things that established it. Also, a lot of people don't like this because Eisenhower tried to warn us. Obviously, JFK and his brother Reagan, Trump, which is why they hate Trump, because trillions of dollars are invested in Agenda 2030, which is the ultimate end goal. But I believe that they need the World War III. They've been setting up
Wait a
Ukraine
minute.
and Russia.
What is Agenda 2030?
Okay, so Agenda 2030, Barack Obama, without the consent of the governed, of course, he's a Manchurian candidate, but his whole family, his mother, all USAID, both fathers CIA. It's true, we can follow it. But what really, the Agenda 2030 used to be Agenda 21. It was started when Bill Clinton and Al Gore started their fraud out of the Club of Rome of carbon credits back in the 90s with the Kyoto Treaty. Basically, it was about when they talk about sequestering carbon and all the stuff about carbon, I think that's about humanity more than it's about carbon. And I believe a lot of these people are atheists, if not totally anti-God and worse than that. But in the meantime, Agenda 21 was about protecting the fleeting natural resources from the overpopulation. In 2009, Bill Gates and Soros and a whole bunch of billionaires, Ted Turner, Bloomberg, they had a meeting at the Rockefeller Institute. At the bottom of all of this, you're going to see the Rockefellers, but it's more of a model that they created of NGOs and civil society organizations. But they had a meeting in 2009, which I believe led to the drafting of Agenda 2030, which comes out of the UN and the World Economic Forum, who joined forces together under Kofi Annan, which a lot of people don't know. And what it is it is a full track and trace surveillance system laid out in 17 sustainable development goals. I would say it's sustainable for the international financial organizations I'm talking about. And basically, it is a global governance model where they say nation states no longer work. So if you go back to 1990 and you think about all the propaganda about global epidemics, global pandemics, global war, global warming, global climate change, it's all about the whole thing is that there are no nation states. The nation state that they most want to destroy is the United States of America, because as Trump says, they're not after me, they're after you, I'm in the way. The real truth is they're not after America, they're after the world, but the Constitution and the Bill of Rights of the United States are in the way, and the
Yeah,
people that
people like
believe in them.
Soros. Yeah, people like George Soros. I think he may have commented on this that he really
Oh
hates
yeah.
our nationalism. He doesn't like us patriots because of the Bill of Rights and Constitution. So this is really kind of scary because this is really deep, right?
Well, they
In
overplayed their
everything we
hand.
did.
Yeah, but they
Yeah.
overplayed their hand during COVID. We have to understand, whoever, I think when they dumbed down our kids in like between the 50s and the 80s, they really dumbed down their own. And then what they did by diluting the Ivy Leagues into, kind of, what they are now are $1 billion hedge funds with schools attached. Like the academics at the Ivy Leagues doesn't even matter for the last 20 years, it appears. So, what we're dealing with is this international banking cartel that is aligned with the international NGO organizations. I would say the World Economic Forum, the UN, Chatham House, Council of Foreign Relations, and then the Rockefeller NGO model, which is what the Open Society, the Clintons, the Bill and Melinda Gates, they all follow this model, which is you can look at even the Rockefeller Philanthropy Advisors website and you'll see the model. You're always going to see. And they've been looking into, the good guys in America for decades have looked into the Ford Foundation, the MacArthur Foundation, the Carnegie Institute, and the Rockefeller brothers and the Rockefeller foundations, because they have been accused since the 30s of subverting the will of the people for the elite. And they still are doing that to this day. They just now, under the Rockefellers, comes obviously Soros. And underneath some of these other groups, of course, also under that same model, are the Clinton Foundation and the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation. And then you find the connections between all of them. And basically what we have right now is an international banking and organization group that lords above every nation. And during COVID, people started being like, they're all talking about the Great Reset, Build Back Better. I mean, Klaus
Mm.
Schwab and the arrogance of Larry Fink talking about going direct to the people through the corporations and the banks. That's called fascism, straight up fascism. And then they use language to accuse us of doing it, like Agenda 2030. Back to that. The American people should know Barack Obama signed the United States onto a nation state ending global governance plan to be achieved by 2030 in 2015. Not only that, during the AutoPen president, Joe Biden and Kamala Harris put out a global goals document saying that the United States was going to be the first to achieve Agenda 2030, and that they were going to put $3 trillion in their second term, which thank God they didn't get, into doing that. Well, what at the end of the day is that? It is totalitarian technocracy. Again, think of the Third Reich, controlled out of Europe between Brussels and Geneva. And this whole plan is about sustainable development. No, it's not. It's about sustaining the model that they've used for 100 years. Now, the kicker for America, and this is the worst part, we are, what, $37 trillion in debt? I believe it's because the United States taxpayer, through the fraudulent Federal Reserve working and all the things they set up, have been paying for all of it. We have been loading money that goes into a black hole through USAID. I'm talking about trillions of dollars into the World Bank, the IMF, all of this stuff that then goes into basically giving out loans all over the world for a lot of the crisis that the public-private partners of the World Economic Forum have caused, or the endless war for profit machine of the military-industrial complex. And then the United States, I believe all of this debt that we're talking about has put into this adventure of this international cartel that has run above our governments for this end goal of global governance. And the technology is the scary part because it's caught up. So, we have the Palantir and the Larry Ellison and the Skynet, and we have Elon Musk and the satellites and all of this. This is worldwide. I also believe that we funded a lot of this around the world, particularly in China. Not we, I mean the international banking cartel.
Right.
So what we have to know is I believe that the entire operation of this globalism really kicked off on a public scale with Bill Clinton. And never forget that George Soros in 1993 wrote a document that is still on the Open Society website. Open Society means no borders. In 1993, George Soros wrote a document called the NATO World Order. This is after we promised Gorbachev under Reagan with Baker that we would not expand NATO, because why was NATO there? Because NATO was to protect from the USSR, the spread of communism and all of that. Well, when the USSR fell, the United States made a pact and promised not to expand NATO. When Bill Clinton's rising, and we know he has a strong connection to George Soros, who of course comes through the banking system and the quantum fund, George Soros wrote a document, NATO World Order, in 1993. What happened right after that? Bill Clinton starts expanding NATO. NATO is not a defensive force, okay? NATO is not at all, since the original NATO ended, a defensive force. It is now, as George Soros put it, the NATO World Order. Well, what's the end goal? No Russia, a united Europe continent that runs the world through Brussels and Switzerland. So you really have to look at this and say, oh my God, because once you look at it, and in the work I'm doing, because I'm working on a book about this, we're talking about 6,000 to 10,000 people that really are running this of 8 billion.
Oh, Mel, we got to wrap it up. You gave us so much information. How can people hear more from you? How do people get to your show?
Well, first and foremost, it is themelkshow.com. I put a lot of these documents. I have a free resource page, and I put a lot of the documents on there, like the Rockefeller documents that lay this out, and the the UN, World Economic Forum, a lot of that on there. So themelkshow.com, go to the resource page. I also have a book out called Americans Anonymous, Restoring Power to the People, One Citizen at a Time, which is kind of a primer to this. And you can follow me on X at Mel K Show, or Instagram, The Mel K Show. And I have a daily show Monday through Friday, 12 to 1:30 p.m. Eastern on Rumble and X Live.
Excellent. I encourage everybody to continue to listen to you. You have so much information. I need you in the government to straighten it out.
Well, it's empowering. Just remember, this information is history that was hidden from us on purpose, but we have a chance right now to stop it in its tracks, because we, the people of the United States, are their biggest problem. So we have to get involved. We have the power to pull out all the roots, and they're not in D.C., they're in your own backyard. So I hope people feel empowered to look into this and to become a part of the solution.
Thank you so much for joining me today.
Thank you.
Wow, that's a lot, right, to think about. We're going to take a short commercial and we'll be right back.
The last time President Trump was in office, gold soared 50% and silver went up a huge 53%. Americans who invested in silver and gold during Donald Trump's first presidency are very happy that they did it. And right now, gold continues to soar to the highest numbers in history. These gains are just an appetizer for what's to come. Some market analysis are saying that gold is predicted to rise another 30% in the next year alone. So now's the time to invest in gold and silver, and that's why I partnered with Fisher Liberty Gold. Fisher Liberty Gold is a conservative-owned and operated precious metals investment company. They even helped my good friend President Trump get elected through their contributions to Turning Point USA and other conservative groups. I have dedicated my life to ensuring that people get the best sleep ever. And in addition to owning a MyPillow, I can now sleep well at night knowing that you can all protect your savings with precious metals with Fisher Liberty Gold. With Fisher Liberty Gold, you can sleep well knowing that your retirement is secure. And if you call now, you're going to receive your very own presidential gold guide and qualify for up to $20,000 in free silver. But wait, there's more. Call now or text metals to 26786 to receive your presidential gold guide from Fisher Liberty. And for a limited time, I will send you a free MyPillow for qualified accounts. This presidential gold guide from Fisher Liberty will tell you exactly why you need to own gold even while Donald Trump is president. And just by calling in, you get a free MyPillow for a limited time for qualified accounts, and up to $20,000 in free silver. So don't wait. Call 1-888-4GOLD-19 or text MEDALS to 26786 today. That's 1-888-4GOLD19 or text MEDALS to 26786 today to receive your free MyPillow and up to $20,000 in free silver. Whether it's being a weekend warrior or spending time with your family, feeling your best is the key to doing the things you love. That's why I'm excited to tell you about Nirvanta. It's a natural solution designed to help you stay active and live well naturally. Nirvanta is a topical blend of all natural essential oils like frankincense, myrrh, and a proprietary gold standard plant stock extract. It's perfect for your hands, feet, knees, back, or anywhere else that needs a little extra care. Use Nirvanta proactively as part of your daily maintenance routine, and you're guaranteed you're going to feel the difference. Simply massage Nirvanta in for at least 60 seconds, 2 to 3 times a day to get the best results. And if you're not completely satisfied, you get your money back. No questions asked. There's simply no risk and no reason not to try Nirvanta today. Right now, you get 15% off with code Lindell exclusively at nirvantahealth.com. So stop reaching out for that medicine cabinet, get Nirvanta instead, and experience the difference. Go to nirvantahealth.com, use code Lindell to get 15% off today. Nirvanta Health, live well naturally.
Well, welcome back to the show. You know, periodically we've talked about the pandemic, how it started in the Wuhan lab, what we did prior to a vaccine, although it didn't fit the definition of a vaccine. We were given mainly hydroxychloroquine around my area. I was prescribing it quite a bit. It didn't cure the virus, but it helped shorten the duration if you gave it early enough. But then there was propaganda against hydroxychloroquine. And then when the mRNA injection came out, there was such a push. Remember, even the director of CDC at the time, Rochelle Walensky, she was like, if you don't take this, you're going to kill your grandmother, and you're the reason it's spreading, which we found out that was all a lie. Well, I am very excited to have Dr. Peter McCullough on my show. I've been listening to him for years now. He's done a lot of research. He's published or been involved with over 1,000 publications. He is absolutely research-based, evidence-based research. So welcome to the show, Dr. McCullough.
Thank you.
Early on, you know, the injection was being pushed so much, and there was a lot of propaganda along with it. And if you spoke up, you were silenced. Before we get into some of the research that you've done, you were a victim of someone trying to go after your board certification, were you not?
Well, you know, in 2020, I was the first to publish a comprehensive multi-drug treatment protocol for acute COVID-19. That became the basis for the Association of American Physician and Surgeons home treatment guide. And that group is an evidence-based, consensus-driven physician organization. So we already had a good early treatment program in the United States in 2020, and that was well ahead of any government or university guidelines. But I first, under oath in the Texas Senate in March of 2021, expressed my concerns regarding the COVID vaccines. We already had 90 days of data. Things weren't looking good. And then in September of 2021, the American Board of Internal Medicine posted a COVID misinformation policy. And then they went back in time to my Texas Senate testimony and said, you violated the policy. So I violated a policy that didn't even yet exist. And then they pursued it from there. And so in the fall of 2024, this drug on for years, I went ahead and resigned from the American Board of Internal Medicine. And I'm certified through the National Board of American surgeons and physicians. So there's multiple boards, and it's not a big deal. So.
Yeah, I know, but it's tragic anyway. You were just doing your job, and you are a true patient advocate because you're trying to educate not only patients, but providers as well. Part of your research, it was told to us in the beginning that the injection just is going to stay in your deltoid muscle. Well, you found out that is not true. You've seen it in the heart, in the brain. Tell us about some of the information that you've gathered.
Yeah, there's many papers to cite. They're all listed on my Focal Point Substack. So if anybody wants to go to Substack, Focal Point, sign up, they can get the free email. But Perry and colleagues demonstrated the vaccine does go everywhere in the body quickly. Disturbing areas. It goes to the female ovaries, for instance, the heart, the lung, the brains, kidneys. And then damage occurs where the vaccine settles in, and probably each person's distribution is a little bit different. So we see a whole array of vaccine injury syndromes. But for instance, Crossan and colleagues found the messenger RNA vaccine and the spike protein in the human heart, causing heart damage in fatal cases, sadly. So the COVID-19 vaccine heart damage results in death. We should never have a vaccine that results in death. It's completely unacceptable. One death is unacceptable. And yet this has been shown clearly. Ota and colleagues recently showed that the blood vessels in the brain of people suffering brain hemorrhages and other intracranial bleeding, it actually is just being inflamed and dissolved by the vaccine spike protein. And Hannah and colleagues found that the messenger RNA is actually in breast milk. So it's in modified sweat or breast milk going from the mother to the baby. It's in cord blood. So expect it to be everywhere. We have data in a patient who I saw today in the office, convincing data that 3.2 years after the shots, he still has circulating Pfizer, fragments of Pfizer, DNA contaminants, and spike protein in his blood. And it's terrible. He's had blood clots, heart damage, every complication you can imagine.
My goodness. And how did you discover that? Is that through a blood test?
Mm-hmm. We did extensive blood testing here in the United States, and we used a research lab in Germany, in Modia, where they're now using PCR and ELISA techniques to nail this down. So this is very disturbing that synthetic messenger RNA from Pfizer can be readily identified in somebody even 3 years after the shots.
Wow.
When these were rolled out, there were no pharmacokinetic or pharmacodynamic studies. No one knew how this was going to get out of the human body. It was an incredibly reckless idea to begin injections with messenger RNA.
I know it. You know it. It's still on the market. Do you think there's a chance that through, what RFK is doing, that it'll eventually be taken off the market?
I don't think so. We have a situation where it's on the market in name. No one's taking it. The CDC stopped reporting the exact numbers. Now they just do a survey of who may take it. To my knowledge, and what my estimate is, I think fewer than 5% of anybody's taking a shot. It would mean they're on their 8th or 9th shot. That would be unprecedented for any vaccine. The COVID's been over for years now. People are back to normal. They're traveling in restaurants. I don't think anybody, sees the threat. A very good paper by Chin and colleagues, New England Journal of Medicine, October of 2024, from the U.S. prison system. It's a very good paper to quote: 59,000 prisoners, 17,000 staff. Once somebody had been through the Delta or Omicron phase, there's a 0% chance risk of hospitalization or death with another episode of COVID. 0. And that the vaccine doesn't matter. It doesn't matter whether they not take a vaccine. I tell you, prisoners, they want to get out of prison, go to a hospital for a while, get a little break, and zero risk. So, like I got called today. One of my patients has COVID. I'm not concerned at all. He's already had it. There's a 0% chance he's going to get sick.
I used to test my own blood all the time. Every time I had a cold, I'd see if I had any, I'd wait a little bit, see if I have any antibodies. And to my knowledge, I never had COVID. I guess I'm one of the lucky ones, nor did I take the injection either. Now, in your practice, we now know about the risk of myocarditis. But again, for a long time, it was being denied. And we saw it especially in young men. Once they get that myocarditis, do they have permanent scarring or permanent sequelae of that initial inflammation?
Well, let me just say that now, since our May 21st, 2025 Senate hearings, Homeland Security, Governmental Affairs, the Permanent Subcommittee for Investigations on Myocarditis, we established in a very comprehensive report, that the U.S. government and the companies work to cover up the myocarditis risk, to conceal that from Americans. So more people took the shots, more heart damage occurred. In fact, deaths occurred because of that cover up. That's now apparent. Both Pfizer and Moderna now list heart damage as a side effect from the vaccines. And as a cardiologist, I can tell you no vaccine is worth it for any degree of heart damage. They're simply not worth it. We do everything in cardiology to protect the heart, right? So they do cause heart damage. A Rasmussen survey just after our Senate testimony indicated 51% of Americans know that. And the heart damage can range from being very small. It's not even detectable by MRI or ultrasound. The patients just have some chest pain and nonspecific findings. We call that subclinical vaccine myopericarditis. To apparent heart damage, that's clinical myocarditis with elevations in troponin, EKG changes, evidence of heart failure or cardiac arrest or sudden death. And so the large areas of scar, as reported by Jenna Schauer and colleagues, more than 15% of the ventricle being scarred, I think those are permanent. And those young people are likely to develop heart failure or cardiac arrest in the future. It doesn't look good for them. Less than a 15% scar, and I've certainly seen less than 7% see that resolve. We know that McCullough protocol-based spike protein detoxification, we can talk about that later, plus in a critical prescription drug called colchicine, that they're mandatory for at least a year to get the heart to heal. So I see patients with this every day in my practice, and I'm hopeful we can get complete resolution. Very disturbing paper was published in the Journal of the American College of Cardiology by Koizumi and colleagues, demonstrating cardiac arrest years after the vaccine, and they had vaccine microscars in the heart at autopsy.
Wow. Shocking, disturbing, scary. And I want to let you know, about 18 months ago to 2 years ago, I was told by a young couple who had a child in New York, they were offering that newborn to have an mRNA injection. I know now the CDC does not recommend it, but they were offering that well after the pandemic was finished. So it's scary to me in my own field that there's still some ignorance around it. I don't know how to get trust back in our fields. I don't know. People feel very much lied to. And of course, the people who have had vaccine injuries, it's so devastating. You were talking about the heart. We know there's neurological issues, sterilization. People having the miscarriage rate went up so much from the injection, and now there's, infertility problems. So I know you said we could get into the detox program maybe another time, but could you touch on it slightly while we have a few minutes?
Well, importantly, we know that a lot of the damage is due to the spike protein, which is retained in the body. And so recall that the virus has the spike protein, the little spikes on the surface of the virus. Well, the little tip gets into the body after COVID. It's called the S1 segment. With the vaccine is the genetic code for massively loading the full-length spike protein in the body. The spike protein was devised in the Chinese biosecurity lab in Wuhan, China. So everybody who's had COVID or taken the vaccine, they have a little piece of this protein from China in them. It's an amazing thought. But in those with vaccinated, sadly, we find sky-high spike protein levels, antibodies and antigen when we measure it. The body is loaded with it, is causing inflammation, autoimmunity, organ damage, blood clots, spike proteins found in blood clots. So fortunately, the natural substances nattokinase, which is a naturally available enzyme, and bromelain, another one, clearly dissolve the spike protein. And then we use curcumin, another natural product, to block spike protein inflammation. There may be other medicinal products that work to either denature the spike protein or block inflammation, including augmented N-acetylcysteine, sereptase, lumbrokinase, papain, as an example. But what we did at the Wellness Company, I'm the chief scientific officer there, is we combine nattokinase, bromelain, and curcumin in high doses, plus minor ingredients. And the product's called the Ultimate Spike Detox. Ultimate Spike Detox. We feel it's mandatory for virtually every person who's taken the vaccine or with long COVID. I've treated them for years now. They don't get better until we begin to get the spike protein out of the body. We see antibodies to the spike protein go down, and people basically clear themselves of this. The messenger RNA, we don't have any methods right now to get rid of it. We know it does come out in sweat. It may come out, in other body secretions. So we tell people, hit the sauna. You want to have lots of perspiration. There may be some data suggesting that hyperbaric oxygen therapy may play a role as well. But there are no human RNases to get rid of it. So like I say, it was very reckless for the government and Pfizer and Moderna to use this technology. And people are so regretful because they take the shot and they can't get it out of their body.
Yeah, and you can't blame the patient, right? They're listening to their provider. They're watching on television. They're hearing President Biden, Dr. Anthony Fauci. They think, oh, it's a doctor telling me I got to take it. Or not only could I die, I'm going to kill my grandmother. So I don't blame people for taking it. I was just suspicious because I was a provider, and I didn't think there was enough study on it. And we knew some early information. As you said, we did know some early information about some of the side effects. Do you think it's important for there to be accountability? We know the drug companies have immunity, and maybe that could change in the future, but where was our academic institutions? I'm from New Hampshire. I have Dartmouth College here. I knew a young resident who told me he wanted to say the risk and benefits to a patient, and he was reprimanded. Yeah. How can we build trust in our field if you're going to just do the company line? It seemed to me so anti-patient focused, that whole thing that we lived through. And is that important for us to have accountability, or do we just say it happened and move on? My issue with saying that is, will they do it again? Will they hide information from patients in the future?
Well, for patients who've suffered heart damage and been hospitalized, and sadly for families who have lost loved ones, I don't think trust will ever be rebuilt, particularly if a doctor strongly recommended it. But we have examples in the past. 1860 to 1920, there was a giant misadventure with cocaine. Virtually all the drug companies made cocaine products. It was in food products. And the doctors and nurses became brutally hooked on cocaine. It was so bad that we had to pass laws to essentially take it away from the doctors and nurses and the public. And, there was only one paper of concern published in JAMA in 60 years over healthcare providers getting addicted to cocaine. It was terrible. Then we have smoking, 1920 to 1978. It was terrible. Virtually everybody smoked. Philip Morris, American Tobacco, and RGR Reynolds had big physician participation in advertising campaigns. Doctors handed out cigarettes to their patients. They smoked in the hospital, in the operating room. And even when it was presented to them, 1950, Richard Dahl and Sir Austin Bradford Hill presented smoking caused lung cancer. The doctors didn't believe it. They tried to smear the presenters on this. And then the U.S. Surgeon General called healthcare leaders to Washington, presented the U.S. Surgeon General report on smoking in 1964 and said, listen, it's not healthy, it's causing cancer. The doctors still rejected that. They continued to smoke. And then the first campaign about the hazards of smoking came out in 1978 by the AMA. So these are two examples. Listen, when the doctors participate in this and the nurses, they don't come out and recognize they're wrong quickly at all. And that's something obvious, like smoking. The doctors all took these shots. So did the majority of nurses. There's not a single doctor in the country, let's say a chief of medicine at a major institution, that stepped out and expressed any concern. Now, most are not out there promoting the vaccines. They're just shamefully quiet. They know they've done something horrible to themselves, their family members, and for their patients. And now they don't know what to do. They're just quiet.
Yes, you're so right. And there was a famous adage, something about the worst thing that a good man can do is say nothing or something like that. And you're right. Maybe they weren't actively out there, but they did not stand up and talk about the truth behind the messenger RNA. Very
even
thoughtful.
Even now,
Yes.
we have thousands and thousands of peer-reviewed papers. And, there's no continuing medical education programs on vaccine injuries like myocarditis or blood clots. There's no grand rounds. There's no review. The students and residents and nurses are not documenting their vaccine history or their COVID history. They're just completely whitewashing this.
Wow. Well, you and I and others are going to start a revolution on that one. I am actually going to recommend that the the American Hospital Association have you as a featured speaker, because it starts in our big academic centers too. We got to stand up for what is right and look at the peer review research and be teaching that to the young residents, to the nursing students. But anyways, this whole subject gets me hot. I'm sure it does to you as well. But I'm so appreciative of the work that you've done, that you continue to do, and your voice is so refreshing. It's based in real science, and it's actually validating to people like me who was just this little voice in a big pond that, wasn't really listened to nationally. So we're very, very grateful for people like you, Dr. McCullough.
Thank you.
All right. Thank you for being on the show tonight. I hope to have you back soon.
Very good. Thanks for having me. Make sure you follow me everywhere on social media. Visit McCullough Foundation, McCulloughFND.org. That's what supports our efforts in the media and public policy. Check out my new book, Vaccines, Mythology, Ideology, and Reality. This is a bestseller on Amazon right now. It's 300 years of history in a rapid, gripping narrative of essentially explaining how people lost their minds over vaccines, hundreds of years ago, and they still did today. It's the same type of a vaccine delusional belief system that people have. I still meet people who they can't see their family members because they didn't take a COVID vaccine in 2021. That's this vaccine religion, this false belief in vaccines. And sadly, the COVID vaccines never stopped the infection, never stopped transmission, never saved lives, didn't make it less severe in any prospective randomized double-blind placebo-controlled trial. No valid study showed that they worked. And they didn't work because they kept telling you to take boosters every few months. A vaccine that works after the primary series and gives meaningful protection. Here, virtually everybody vaccinated got COVID. That tells you they don't work. But we can certainly do our part, I think, by messaging the truth, and we're waiting for the major academic medical centers to do their part. I'm Dr. Peter McCullough. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Wow. What a great amount of information in a short amount of time. And I would recommend you go to Amazon right now and buy his book. I'm going to buy it. A man like Dr. McCullough, we really haven't seen, right? In the healthcare industry, we should have thousands upon thousands of people like Dr. McCullough who come forward and want to show you peer-reviewed research, want to tell you the truth, want to talk about the information. But sadly, We haven't seen it and we're still not seeing it. And I guess that's why I get so frustrated. But I'm so appreciative he came on the show today. And we'll be talking more about his book in the future. So make sure you go to his Vocal Substack where you can actually see some of the research. I don't know if it's downloadable. Check it out. Well, I thank you so much for joining me tonight. And I will see you on Wednesday.